righty. I think we are doing well. Let me just take a moment to check the audio. Okay, let me just move my microphone back just a tad. Actually, I'm using a new microphone today, but let me adjust that. Let me see if I can adjust that before we get into everything. But if you just listen to that song, that is Great Monster War March, a synthwave cover by the YouTube creator Queer Kaiju. You can find the link to that wonderful song down in the chat, and you can see it on the screen right now. Wonderful song. In fact, I commissioned Queer Kaiju to make that synth cover. It's really nice. It's really cool. Check out that channel. They have a lot of great songs on there, a lot of great covers to a lot of tunes that you may recognize. So let me just put that on again. Well, wait. We'll just wait a second here. Maybe I should have checked that whole thing. Let me see. Let me go to settings. All right, we got devices here. I think that's what I'm going to want here. No, not that. Okay, not that one. Yo, it's a trap. Hope you're doing well, man. Hope you are doing well. Just relaxing. I'm just relaxing on this lovely evening of Mother's Day. Hope you guys have had a lovely Mother's Day. Let me see here. As I screw around with a few things in the back here. Let me see. What did I do? Camera, mic, audio. Adjust microphone. Okay. I'm thinking. Let me just let me open up my tab again. Another tab just to check on the audio there. The audio here, I guess. Okay. I think that's going to be what I am wanting, at least volume wise. Hopefully, we're all having a nice evening. Already. It's been a fine day. I watched King Kong 2005, the extended version, with a friend earlier today. I love that version. Just some little things here and there that I really enjoyed. I like that one scene where they think they shoot that big bird thing, and Jack Driscoll's very distraught. He's thinking, "Oh no, they shot Anne," and then they find out it's a big practical bird like thing just like wobbling around on the ground. That was pretty cool. Let's see. I also got my DVD copy of King Kong Lives, and I'm waiting for my pre-order of the new King Kong 1976 to come in. Yeah, that's the one. That's the scene. I also enjoy the scene with the underwater creatures, those big, the big fish, the swamp fish. Those are fun. Yeah, it was. It was. Alrighty, let me just get into this book. It's been a long while since I have read King Kong versus Tarzan. This is a wonderful book by Will Murray. The full title is The Wild Adventures of King Kong versus Tarzan by Will Murray. I read it somewhat extensively. I say extensively, but it's more like quote unquote extensively. I've read up to chapter 10. So today the plan is that I'm going to read chapter 10 and 11. Hopefully we can relax. Is this book you're reading available digitally? I don't know, actually. I actually have a physical copy of this book. Let me take a look at that while I am here. Let's see here. King Kong versus Tarzan. There is a Kindle edition available on Amazon for $5.99. So if you got a Kindle edition, or if you got a Kindle, then that'll work out. I am not sure. Let me try the Google search on Google. And let me see here. Press the enter button. Let me see here. Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm looking, just kind of a cursory glance here, I'm only seeing a Kindle edition of this book. Oh, sweet. That works out great. Works out very great. Well, alrighty. I got a nice little cup of hot chocolate with me just to relax. Oh, it's been a nice day. But we'll get into more about that after these 2 chapters. And if you're just now tuning in with us, this is chapter 10 of King Kong versus Tarzan. In the last chapter, chapter 9, we pretty much just kind of ended out with Panjaga, the witch doctor of sorts, the witch doctor of Skull Island, giving Kong, let's see here, water as he is sedated. He, obviously needs to eat and drink. So they've been mashing up food and slowly, gently pouring water into Kong's mouth so that he can survive. And with that, let's get into chapter 10. Chapter 10. On the 7th day, the supine hulk called Kong twitched spasmodically. Panjaga the storyteller was summoned to the number 3 hold. Driscoll remarked, "Might be time to whip up a batch of that bamboo soup." Panjaga said nothing as she made a slow circuit of Kong's body, observing how the muscles of the shoulders and calves twitched intermittently. Sleeping dogs often behave that way, but this was new with Kong. When she had completed one pacing circuit of her monstrous charge, the storyteller drew up to the first mate and looked up into his eyes, saying only, "Tell your cook to begin the broth. I will instruct him." "Yes, ma'am," Driscoll said with a mock sincerity. The old woman seemed to think she was in charge of ship's affairs. While Driscoll was aft to the galley, Panjaga drew from a pouch of dinosaur skin a ball of herbs which had been dried in the sun of the afterdeck. She lit this with an arrangement of flint, placed the burning herbs in one of the dry water pails, then, chanting an ancient song of her people, walked around Kong, swinging the bucket the way priests swing smoking incense censers at their church services. The number 3 hold soon filled with the sweet smoke reminiscent of sagebrush. The smoke wafted into Kong's broad nostrils. Before long, the twitching of his mighty form subsided. A calmness settled, and his breathing became less labored. Lumpy the cook was used to being first cook as well as second cook A vessel the size of the Wanderer often had a second cook, but times were hard and cargo scarce. So Lumpy served in the dual capacity of first and second cook. He ran his kitchen the way Englehorn ran his wheelhouse, brooking no guff or backtalk. When the old woman from Skull Mountain Island began telling him how to whip up green bamboo broth, he was not happy. Boil the water slowly, she reprimanded. Do not boil it so fast. The juice of the green bamboo must be brought out slowly. This is my galley, snapped Lumpy. Perched upon his shoulder, Ignatz the monkey began chattering and scolding the old woman in imitation of his owner. Panjaga fixed the monkey with her glare of iron and chattered back in no recognizable language. Hearing these sounds, Ignatz grabbed at the hair atop his tiny skull and made a round mouth. Are you talking his language? Lumpy demanded. I am scolding him back, no more and no less. Your monkey lacks manners. There's a lot of that going around this old hooker, sneered Lumpy. Like I was saying, this is my galley. Butt out. Just tell me what to dump in the pot and I'll do the dumping. Your galley, but Kong is my charge. You will boil the green bamboo as I direct. I will hear no more of your stubbornness. Flicking forefingers in the direction of Ignatz, she caused the little monkey to leap from the cook's shoulder and go scampering off into an open cupboard. Whereupon the tiny creature pulled the door shut and huddled inside in utter silence. Never behaved that way before, muttered Lumpy. Did you put a hex on him or something? Boil the green bamboo mash properly, unless you want Kong's hunger pangs to shake this vessel into pieces, directed Panjaga. The thought of the mighty ape flailing about in the number 3 cargo hold, shaking the ship at every joint, rivet, and bulkhead seam, sobered Lumpy's recalcitrant mood. I gotta tell you guys, quick aside here, there are some very big words in this book, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a trap. It's been a long time. Just before I get back into this, it's been a long time since I have read live with this book, and mostly just a lot of family stuff happened at the end of the year, and didn't really feel like doing this, but it's really nice to be doing this again. And back to the book here, back to our story. Recalcitrant. Gonna have to look that one up later. Alrighty. Sobered Lumpy's recalcitrant mood. Okay. Have it your way then. Everybody thinks they're a cook. Panjaga hovered over the great stew pot, which was large enough to feed 30 men, sniffing the fumes as the young bamboo shoots slowly cooked. From time to time, she reached into one of her belt pouches and pulled forth what appeared to be herbs and spices, adding pinches here and there, sniffing again until her wrinkled face relaxed and her eyes softened in satisfaction. Only by these signs did the storyteller indicate that she was pleased with the progress of the steaming soup. When the concoction was simmering, the gas stove was shut down and it was allowed to cool until it was merely warm. From time to time, Panjaga dipped in a calloused finger until she was satisfied as to the broth's temperature. Pour into buckets and carry them to Kong. I will feed him. I don't think we have that many buckets. 2 buckets to start. Kong must be fed slowly and carefully, lest he awaken. Well, we can't have that now, can we? Lumpy sniffed disdainfully. The feeding proceeded much the way that the old woman had watered Kong on the 5th day. She slopped the mushy stew into his mouth, carefully moistening the gums on the roof of the mouth and the tender orifices that did not look very tender at all. When she had finished emptying the first bucket, Panjaga took the second and very, very carefully poured the warm mash down Kong's open throat, kneading his larynx, causing him to swallow reflexively. The juicy bamboo broth went down easily and brought forth no reaction from Kong. Jack Driscoll was a silent witness to all this. He made a point of standing as far away as practical, just in case Kong began coughing and expelling the bamboo soup. Turning to him, the old woman remarked, "It is going well, better than expected." "Good. How many buckets are you going to feed him?" "I will feed Kong until the last one is empty. If my reckoning is true, this will sustain him for a week." Driscoll frowned. "Will he need solid stuff?" We will see, we will see. Now fetch more broth." "At your service, as always," the first mate said dryly. Crewmen brought the heavy-laden buckets in relays, and while Kong was being fed, Driscoll made a point of examining Kong's wrist and ankle shackles. Wielding the rounded curve of a marlin spike, he slipped the steel tip under the shackles, and by this means judged that Kong was losing some of his mountainous mass. Seeing this, the old woman demanded, "What are you doing?" "These shackles were tight as a drum when they were placed on his wrists," returned Driscoll solemnly. "Now there's plenty of give, and here we are only a week out. I don't like the trend of things, not one bit." Leaping off Kong's chest as lightly as if she were half her age, Panjaga stormed up to the first mate, took hold of the marlin spike, and wiggled it experimentally. Her face gathered up like a twitching spiderweb. "See," said Driscoll, "at this rate he'll be skin and bones before we reach Africa." Panjaga was silent for a long time. Her wise eyes darted back and forth. Evidently, she was thinking. Oh, we're doing good. The nice thing about this book is there's very short chapters. Very short chapters. Continuing. "We may have to feed him fish sooner than I had planned," she mused. "That's up to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to have the shackles tightened." "Use care," said Panjaga, "for if I fatten up Kong, they will have to be loosened again." Driscoll nodded. "Believe me, I don't want to monkey with the shackles any more than I have to." He grew thoughtful. "Listen up, Panjaga. Give me the straight dope. Will Kong make it all the way to America? That's 3 moons, a long time." "A long time for mortal men," said Panjaga, "but for Kong, who has lived longer than your ancestors, it is not a very long time at all. Still, he must be fed properly." "You haven't answered my question," reminded Driscoll. Panjaga studied his face. She compressed her thin lips until they almost disappeared. "That is because I know not the answer," she said at last. "No one knows the answer." "But what's your best guess?" "I do not know. I know things, or I do not know them. But I have a strong feeling." Her eyes were challenging. Jack Driscoll stuck out his jaw. "Out with it, then. What do you feel?" "I feel," intoned Panjaga the storyteller, "that Kong cannot survive a journey of 3 moons if he lies in chains the entire voyage." That is your final word? Her wise old eyes closed as if to end the conversation. That is the final word of Panjaga. All right, that's going to be chapter 10. I'm going to take a little drink break here. Just going to drink my hot chocolate. And let me see here. So that is a really good question there. So this is when you do eventually get the copy of this book. Basically, the story picks up just before the capture of Kong on Skull Island, or in this book, Skull Mountain Island. At least that's what they always refer to it very frequently. And basically, this is kind of that in between, like the time frame is the in between of Kong's capture and Kong's eventual escape in New York. So it's a very big, it's a bit of a big timeline there. But essentially, the basic plan for the crew of the Wanderer is to take Kong, stop in Africa, get some supplies, and then finish the rest of the trip, hopefully to New York City, or wherever in America that they're gonna set to port. But yeah, and obviously, when they stop in Africa, they're gonna meet Tarzan, I guess. So basically, we have not gotten a point of view from Tarzan. The POV has pretty much basically just been on Jack Driscoll, a little bit of Ann Darrow, and then of course we've had Carl Denham, we've had Captain Englehorn, we have Panjaga the storyteller, who is essentially just an original character for this book. And yeah, I gotta say, it's pretty interesting. I absolutely love let me see, what was it? The chapter one of this book was delightful to read through. And I'm just going to let you read that when you get to it, because it's great. It's really great. Let me see. Yeah, the way Jack Driscoll sounds and the way you read him, it makes it sound like the 1933 Kong rather than Adrian Brody's Jack Driscoll from Kong 2005. Now that does make me think, because let's just say, for the sake of imagination, here, imagine the 2005 Peter Jackson's King Kong crossed over with that that one Legend of Tarzan movie that came out. Oh gosh, when did that come out? Came out in I think it was 2016. Yeah, 2016, The Legend of Tarzan with Alexander Skarsgård. Funny because he was in Godzilla versus Kong. But yeah, imagine that. Imagine if they had that movie crossover with the 2005 movie. That would be interesting. Yes, I remember seeing that movie in theaters. It was all right. I mean, I don't think it really caused much of a wave, so to speak. Didn't create waves when it hit theaters. I mean, it did decent in the box office considering its budget, but yeah, it had Christoph Waltz as the villain. You had Alexander Skarsgård as Tarzan. You had Samuel Jackson as a secondary protagonist. Margot Robbie as Tarzan's wife, as Jane Porter, I think. Yeah, Jane Porter. Jane Clayton. I don't know. Jane Porter. You have Jimon Honsu. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but the guy. He's in a lot of movies. He was in Blood Diamond. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. Very distinct voice. He didn't really play a huge role, but it was interesting, real interesting. I'd put it in the same vein as Hercules with The Rock, nothing crazy there. Nothing crazy there. Yeah, I don't want to get too off topic, but Hollywood keeps remaking Tarzan and Hercules. Yeah, and those IPs just aren't hot properties like they used to be. Yeah. Anyway, back to the book. Well said. Well said. Alrighty. Chapter 11. It had been sweltering in the southern latitudes, but up in the northern Indian Ocean, it was not appreciably cooler. The sultry warmth was a relief from the torrid heat they had experienced cleaving the waters away from Skull Mountain Island. It was no longer necessary for the crew to sleep out on the afterdeck instead of their overheated bunks. Nightfall was a relief. Nightfall was always welcome. As a tropical moon rose, Jack Driscoll loitered by the poop deck, conversing with Ann Darrow in low, urgent whispers. Rushing of the sea against the Wanderer's scabby hull masked the sounds of their urgent exchange. "Oh, Jack," she was saying, "I've been having the most frightful nightmares." "About Kong?" Anne nodded expressively. "Always Kong. He's like a dark, smothering shadow that has been cast over me and refuses to depart." "Buck up, kid. Once we hit the big town, old Kong will be Denham's problem." Anne laid her golden head against Driscoll's broad shoulder and fell silent, as lovers often do. Driscoll frowned suddenly. "What is it, Jack?" asked Anne, noticing. "Denham. There's a hitch in the return voyage. I had wanted to tell you, but it's coming to a head, and it's liable to bust loose any time now." Anne laid a pale palm against Jack's tropical pongo shirt and implored, "What is it? Please tell me. I must know." "The skipper thinks we can't make passage via the Suez Canal. Authorities there won't let us through because of Kong, so we'll have to steam down to the southern tip of Africa, go clear around the bottom of the continent, then push north up the Atlantic Ocean." "What does that mean?" "It means," mused Driscoll, "the chances of Kong making it all the way through to landfall get slimmer and slimmer." "Perhaps that is what is meant to be," sighed Anne. "He may be a brute, but now he is no better than a slave in chains, bound for a fate that he did not seek out." Driscoll eyed Anne's pale, distracted features and asked, "Are you going soft on me? After being caught up in that big gorilla's paw?" Anne laughed shortly. "Perhaps I've been hanging around Ignatz too much, but the little monkey reminds me of a tiny human, and Kong makes me think the same." "But only bigger, eh? Listen, Kong is cargo, nothing more, nothing less, but valuable cargo. It's my job and the skipper's to get him as far as wind and weather and King Neptune's moods allow. But that's the extent of it. His fate is up to—" Driscoll's voice trailed off. "The Almighty?" prompted Anne. "Oh, I was thinking of Carl Denham, who just thinks he's almighty." Driscoll's eyes grew reflective. "Well, I guess Mr. Denham is soon to discover that he is not the master of old Kong's fate, any more than he is the master of this vessel. We'll be breaking the bad news to him tonight, I think." "Denham will be livid." "Right. That's why we put this off as long as possible. But tonight's the night. Better go to your cabin, bolt the door. Denham's sure to be a wild man when it sinks in." Taking Anne's slim shoulders in his heavy hands, Jack Driscoll gave her a chaste kiss on the forehead, spun her about, and sent her on her way with a gentle push. "Don't let me see your face again until the storm blows over," he called after her. The first mate's boisterous voice carried. It brought Lumpy up from below. "Did I hear something about a blow?" Lumpy demanded. He was wiping his soiled hands on an equally soiled apron. "Figure of speech," returned Driscoll. "Put it out of your mind, Lumpy. How's the big behemoth faring, by the way?" "Oh, hello, Mr. Jeremy Five," Russia approved. "Glad you could join us. I know it's been a while. We are on Chapter 11 of King Kong versus Tarzan. Let's see here. That old battle axe from the island thinks he'll have to be fed red meat in another day or two. No later, Mr. Driscoll. What are we going to do then?" Driscoll gave Lumpy a hearty smack on his sun-reddened spine and said, "Shove it to the back of your cupboard, Lumpy. Shove it to the back of your cupboard, Lumpy. 48 hours is a long time from now. Worry about it then. We've got to get through the next 2 days." The wizened old cook looked around again, searched the evening skies with squinting eyes, and noted the fleecy clouds racing along in the moonlight. "What's coming in the next 2 days?" he asked weakly. "That storm I mentioned, man-made. In fact, it's a one-man storm. His name is Denham, and he's about to blow his cork. He just doesn't know it yet." Lumpy made a puckered mouth and muttered, "From what I've seen of that guy, he pops his top quite regular." "He sure does," Driscoll allowed. "But this time we may have to go fishing it out of the Indian Ocean. It's going to blow so high." "Sky high, eh?" Lumpy said. "That should be a sight." "Better go below, Lumpy. It may happen tonight, and you don't want to be around it." Nodding to himself, Lumpy scuttled back down the companionway, disappearing into his galley, satisfied for the moment. Let me just say quickly, Lumpy's voice has fluctuated very frequently over the course of these past 10 chapters. But anyhow, the first mate Driscoll continued on his rounds and finally climbed up to the wheelhouse where Captain Englehorn was studying the horizon ahead. There was not much to see. Darkness piled up on darkness. The lunar orb sprinkled sparkling moonglade in all directions, making the Indian Ocean a beautiful sight, as if loose stardust was dancing on a swell of black velvet. Englehorn turned, unplugged his pipe from his tight mouth, and asked, Have you, oh gosh, let me try to remember. Englehorn. Captain Englehorn. Have you seen Denham, Mr. Driscoll? Driscoll shook his head. Not in the last few hours, but he likes to sleep during the day and prowl the decks at night. Guess he's a night owl. Replacing his pipe, Englehorn nodded somberly. Are you thinking tonight's the night? Driscoll probed. I am, Mr. Driscoll. In that case, why don't we just get it over with? No sense putting it off any longer. You have caught the trend of my thoughts perfectly, Mr. Driscoll. Helmsman, carry on. Aye, Captain, returned the helmsman, not taking his eyes off the way ahead, or his sunburned hands off the steering wheel. Englehorn leading, they banged down the companion stairs and went in search of Carl Denham. After a protracted search, they found him in the number 3 hold. The showman was seated on a wooden crate, a hurricane lantern illuminating the cavern of steel. He was contemplating the creature he had dubbed King Kong. Hearing the rattle of feet on the steel companionway steps, he stood up and called, Who is it? The skipper and me, Denham, announced Driscoll. We have been looking for you. Well, you found me. What's the scuttlebutt? There was a jaunty ring in Denham's voice that told that he was in a good mood. They were loath to disturb that. The mercurial filmmaker's personality had come to remind them of the weather, sometimes calm, sometimes threatening, but always unchangeable. But always changeable. There we go. Captain Engelhorn took charge of the discussion. His pipe had gone out, and he fiddled with it, then decided that he needn't bother. Instead, he used the curved stem as a pointer and directed it at Denham's chest. Mr. Denham, I must speak to you about a grave matter. Denham lost his jocular smile. His fingers sought his tropical jacket pockets, disappeared within, thumbs hooked outward, and the only digits visible. He rocked back on his heels. Well, let's hear it then. Engelhorn continued, Mr. Driscoll and I have been discussing the challenges of our return voyage, and they are mounting. Mounting, eh? As Kong has been snoozing the days away. We haven't hit any weather. I hear they're making good speed. And we are ahead of schedule, isn't that so? The old seaman nodded. As far as that goes, you have captured the situation. But we face a difficult decision, the three of us. I'm listening, Denham said tightly, pulling one hand out of a pocket. As you know, in order to make the best speed possible, our intended course is to transit the Red Sea and enter the Mediterranean by means of the Suez Canal. Denham nodded. I remember. That course was originally laid before we understood the nature of our cargo. It has dawned on Mr. Driscoll and me that we dare not enter the Suez Canal and expose the ship to official inspection without giving the canal authorities fair warning that we carry live cargo. Well, just tell them we got a big load of bananas and a bigger gorilla, and let it go at that. I wish it was as simple as that, asserted Engelhorn. But we risk the likelihood that the canal authorities will not let us pass, inasmuch as we are carrying dangerous cargo. Taking a broad hand out of the other pocket, Denham waved in the direction of the slumbering mountain of fur and said, Dangerous? He's a-sleeping like a baby. Better, he's like a little lamb. Now, asserted Driscoll. But 2 weeks from tonight might be a different bucket of blood. Don't kid yourself or us. Denham subsided, searching the faces of the two ship's officers. What are you trying to tell? Oh, okay. What we are trying to tell you, Mr. Denham, continued Engelhorn, is that we must radio ahead to the Suez Canal authorities and provide them with the full particulars of our cargo, holding back nothing, concealing no pertinent details whatsoever. Denham considered this. At last he said, Fine by me. Radio ahead. Let's hear what they have to say. I am glad that you agree, Mr. Denham. The filmmaker beamed a little too widely and said, Well, why wouldn't I? We're all in the same boat, aren't we? The three of us are in this together. We've got to do things by the rule book in order to get to our destination safely. Good, said Engelhorn. I will have Sparky contact the Suez Canal authorities tonight. We should hear the answer before long. Something in Carl Denham brought a twinge to his ruddy features. Not so fast, he said. Let's think this through. What do you suppose the canal authorities are going to wire back? Captain Engelhorn took his pipe into his mouth and chewed on the stem ruminatively. When he took it out, his mouth drooped at both corners. "It is my belief," he said, "that the Suez Canal authorities will not believe a word of our wireless transmission." Denham blinked. His soft brown eyes grew crafty. "So we just sail into the canal and hope for the best, is that it?" "Doubtful," returned Engelhorn. "The authorities are not going to believe that we are carrying a 30-foot terror weighing nearly 10 tons. On our representations alone, they are not going to permit passage. And if they do, it will not be without a full inspection. In which case, we will almost certainly be turned back to fend for ourselves." "Well, if they're going to be tough about it," said Denham heartedly, "don't radio ahead. We'll just take our chances, try to bluff our way through. Don't give them a chance to say no. That's how it's done." "If they do say no," murmured the skipper evenly, "we will be turned back and forced to circumnavigate the entirety of Africa in order to reach the Atlantic Ocean. There are no two ways about that." Denham's expression quivered. "What you are saying, we don't even try for the canal." "It is in my mind that this is our least undesirable course of action. For if we are turned back, we will have lost several days, if not a week. We cannot afford that. Kong cannot afford that." Carl Denham was hot now. It wasn't the stifling heat of the hold. He yanked out a handkerchief and was mopping his forehead in his increasing anxiety. The changeable weather of his emotional state was shifting before their eyes. "They won't turn us back," he exploded. "I'll bribe them if I have to. Nothing's going to stop me from getting this big monkey back to New York." Driscoll inserted equally hotly, "See here, Mr. Denham, we have a hard choice to make here. We can't make it by getting hot under the collar. If you want us to try to transit the canal, you're going to have to live with the consequences. And they are predictable. The canal authorities will take one look at Kong, and they won't see the strength of his chains. They'll imagine what happens if they snap. Their minds will go to working, and they'll realize that if Kong busts loose while we're passing through, he'll sink the ship in one of the most important and busy waterways ever built, and possibly run amok on land." More evenly, Captain Engelhorn inserted, "There's also the matter of insurance. All ships transiting the canal must be insured by a local company. No reputable insurance company will stake their reputation on the freight we are carrying." Carl Denham had no answer for that. Instead, he began stamping around in circles, muttering himself, "Authorities, permits, insurance. How I yearn for the days when a man could just bust loose, tear around, and get what he needs to be done, done." Wheeling, he faced the Wanderer's officers. "In my time, I've filmed lion stampedes in Africa, pythons in Siam, and other things I don't even want to talk about. My movies made money because I took risks, and damn the consequences." Captain Engelhorn kept his even tone, only Driscoll saw that his temperature was rising slowly. "If they deteriorate," he reminded, "the consequences would be the loss of my ship, my crew, not to mention your prize, Kong." "We've got to risk the canal," he stormed. "Do you hear me? We've got to." Driscoll snapped back. "And what if the worst happens? You won't be getting your almighty super gorilla into port, but a dead ape, no better than a stuffed animal. And that's the best you could hope for, a corpse you could display for the yokels. Taxi dancers getting a dime a dance. I'm sure Kong's cold corpse will fetch a quarter a throw. Ah, what does it matter? You don't care about Kong. You just want the money he'll rake in for you. Dead or alive, it amounts to the same heap of coins." For a moment, it seemed as if Carl Denham was willing to listen to reason. He stared over at Kong, whose hirsute chest was gently rising and falling in the dimness of the hold, and resumed talking to himself. Suppose I could get the big boy stuffed, he muttered. With the right taxidermist doing the job, he'd be good for 5 or 10 years. Hell, maybe 20. Denham chewed on his lower lip, suddenly shook off his morbid thoughts. No, what am I thinking? Kong alive and roaring is what the public wants to see. Alive, I tell you. I haven't come this far to settle for any less. Shaking an angry finger at Captain Englehorn, he snarled, Make your damned radio call. Let Sways know that we're planning to ram down their throat. Let me know what they tell you. We'll figure it out after we receive their reply. Very well, Mr. Denham, said Englehorn. I will have Mr. Driscoll relay their answer once we have it in hand. Good night, sir. Englehorn turned and went out via the companionway, but Jack Driscoll remained, studying Carl Denham thoughtfully. What are you staring at, Driscoll? Demanded the filmmaker. I was just thinking that you're just the type of guy who's willing to risk anybody's skin to achieve your dream, and you don't care who might perish in the process. Driscoll made fists, but kept them at his side and stepped up to the first mate, practically putting his nose against the other's. Damn right I'm willing to take risk. Any risk. Don't you see how big this is? Don't you see how we will astound the world? 100 years from now, they'll all be talking about King Kong, the Wanderer, and Carl Denham. Maybe even you, if you keep your wits about you. My wits, said Jack Driscoll tightly, are always about me. Remember that. The first mate turned to go. Denham called after him. You accuse me of being willing to risk anybody's skin? Well, you're right about that. I would. I'm built that way. Don't forget that. But remember, I'm also willing to risk my own skin. Haven't I shown that? Haven't I? Climbing the companionway stairs, Jack Driscoll did not bother to reply. His opinion of Carl Denham was written in the grave lines of his face. Sparky, the radio man, received from the Suez Canal authorities within an hour of sending out the wireless message. He read it, whistled once, and took the inscribed response up to the bridge and presented it to Captain Englehorn. The first mate was also present, awaiting the same reply. As he read the succinct radiogram, the skipper's iron-gray eyebrows drew together, creating a vertical knot in his seamed forehead. Message understood. Stop. Kindly sober up before attempting transit. Stop. He handed the flimsy over to the first officer, who read the sparse sentences and said, About what we should expect. So what do we do, Skipper? We have our reply. There's no point in attempting to convince the authorities by radio that our ship is laden with what we claim it is. I leave it to you to inform Mr. Denham. Please advise him at once. Let him know our decision is irrevocable. Wanderer will not attempt to transit the canal. Instead, we will turn south and hope for the best. Saluting, Driscoll said, Aye, aye, Captain. Jack Driscoll found Carl Denham in his cabin. It was by that time very late. Knocking once, he heard Denham demand sleepily, Who is it? Driscoll, we have our answer from the canal authorities. Good or bad? Depends on how you look at it, I suppose, admitted Driscoll dryly. They assume we're all a bunch of rum-soaked sailors. We'll never convince them otherwise. Skipper says no choice but to turn south. The first mate braced himself for the cabin door to fly open and a human gale to come tearing out, blowing hot bluster in his face. Instead, Carl Denham was very quiet. A minute passed, then 2, 3. Driscoll said, Captain Engelhorn asked me to inform you that his decision is irrevocable. Well, he's the ship's master, isn't he? If he's determined to turn south, then south it is. Don't let me get in your way. Just make all speed. Yes, Mr. Denham, said Driscoll, and walked away with relief written on his tight features. One fist was a hard knot of bone and ligament, which the first mate was prepared to drive into Carl Denham's face if the filmmaker had flown out of control. Regret vied for relief on Jack Driscoll's thoughtful face as he sought the bridge in order to inform Captain Engelhorn that there would not be a one-man mutiny. At least, not tonight. And that is chapter 11 of The Wild Adventures of King Kong versus Tarzan by Will Murray. Now, hopefully, you guys have been having a nice evening. Hopefully, you'll have a nice beginning of your week, tomorrow with Monday. Whether you're working, whether you're relaxing, whether you're doing anything, really, I hope you guys stay well. Thank you. Thank you for the round of applause. Let me just quickly bring your attention to the pinned comment here. So, great YouTube creator here, Queer Kaiju. He's got a channel. Here is a cover of a song, a synth cover of a song, Great Monster War March from Invasion of the Astro Monster, that I commissioned him to, I guess compose. I think that's the right. I think that's the right phrasing. Yeah, compose. So yeah, check out this link here. If you're interested, check out some of Queer Kaiju's other synth covers that he's done. It's great stuff. I was blown away by it. Let me just play a little snippet of it for you guys right now. And if it gets taken out, no worries. I'll just download the stream, re-upload it again without the song in it. But anyhow, guys, let's just relax a bit. Sorry, I had a bit of a anyway, let's take a bit of a listen to this. I really do enjoy it. I also got a nice little image of something that I made up in Canva in my spare time. But let's hear this thing. Alrighty, I won't play the whole thing because it's about a 3-minute thing. But yeah, that's a little tidbit of that. I'm blown away by it. I thought it was amazing. And you can find them on Twitter. You can find them on YouTube. And I think it's great content. And I'm very, very pleased with how it turned out. Yeah, I know, right? It's pretty dope. Very cool channel. Just totally cool. And with that, guys, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your night. I'm probably going to heat up another mug of hot liquid just to kind of ease my voice into that Monday morning. But let me just play a funny clip for you guys to close this night out.
Tell me how the grass tastes, little man.
I love that clip. Tell me how the grass tastes, little man. Oh, boom. I just love it. I love it. But anyhow, guys, shout out to It's a Trap Productions and Jeremy 5 Russia Approved, and anybody else who tuned in today or will tune in to this stream in the future. I'll see you guys again. I'm going to try and get back into doing this regularly because we're making progress. We're making progress in this wonderful book. And I guess the goal is going to be next Sunday. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't happen, well, it doesn't happen. But anyways, I'll see you guys later. Have a good evening and have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye.